Okay, so we are going to learn about rheology and few other concepts of biophysics. Uh, Hello, I'm Vatsal Gandhi, and today I will explain you something. I hope it helps. So the first topic is rheology. First, we understand the word rheo means flow, and logy means study. So study of blood flow in this case, and it is important. It's very important medically to test susceptibility of to hypertension, pressure on heart, how much the heart has to work, and it will come in the following slides that we also have to calculate the work done by heart. Resistance to blood flow. This is very commonly observed in people having atherosclerosis, which means basically a clot which is blocking the arteries, and it is causing the diameter of the arteries to decrease. Okay, so let's start. So here is a question: calculate the average speed in a given artery. If Reynolds number is 744 and cross-sectional area is 114 millimeters square. So first of all, there are a few equations which give the relation between Reynolds number. So what is Reynolds number? Basically, we know from Reynolds number the turbidity and the fluidity of a liquid. How fluid a liquid is. Uh, there is something called laminar flow, and there's something called turbulent flow. So a turbulent flow, if it is more than 1000, the Reynolds number, then the liquid is uh, turbulent flow, and if it is less than 1000, which means laminar flow. Laminar flow is nothing but all the layers, if you will, if you can imagine, all the layers of the liquid are flowing with the same speed. So there is no friction in between the flow of liquid. So for proper functioning of the body, it is important for the Reynolds number of blood flow to be under 1000. And in this case, it is 744. So it is very much normal, but we can see that after the calculation. And here's the cross-sectional area, which is given, which is pi r square from the diameter and radius of artery. So this is the formula in which Re is the Reynolds number, V is the velocity, R is the radius, and we have to solve for diameter. So here we get N 0.003 and P 1060. These are given values, and we need to know this. So if we know this, we can calculate the radius, and this is the answer that we get. So here we can see velocity times the radius, which is 6.02 into 10 to minus 3. So this we found out from the area. So we have to find out the velocity. So we found out R. We know the P and N, which is given. And I think you might have to remember P value. N value would be given in exam, most probably. I don't remember. Okay. So here you get the velocity 0.35 meters per second. So you have to know this equation, and then you might be given different variables and you have to solve for the unknown variable. It's pretty much about that. So you have to know your fundamentals for that. So here we have been given average speed of blood. Reynolds number is also given, and cross-sectional, uh, sorry, I missed it. Average speed of blood is given, cross-sectional area is lower, it's given that, and we have to calculate the average speed in the pulmonary artery. So first of all, we have to know that area times velocity is always constant, because here we don't know the exact value of the area. So we have to know this rule, which is area times velocity is constant. So the equation would be S times V is constant, which means S1 V1 equals to S2 V3 equals to S3 V3, where S is the area and V is the velocity. There is a formula, and V1 we find out by comparing the 3.5%. So 3.5%, if you convert it into decimals, would be 0.035, and 1 minus 0.035 would be the velocity in iota. And so we find the speed or the velocity in this case in the pulmonary artery. Calculate PVR. Now, what is PVR? PVR is nothing but resistance. Resistance, as I told you earlier, it is related to clotting, causes narrowing of the blood vessels, mainly arteries, and also there is sometimes a deposition of calcium, which causes narrowing of the diameter. And also there is resistance, like even in healthy people there is some resistance, and in few individuals you might even find more resistance because of their genes or whatever. Their arteries are more resistant to blood, which causes the less velocity of blood. So here we have to calculate the PVR. Okay, systemic circulation, meaning the circulation from the heart to the body and back. So, and there is another which is pulmonary circulation. Pulmonary is from heart to the lungs and back. Here we are given diastolic pressure, blood pressure, and systolic blood pressure. And you should know that a normal systolic or diastolic blood pressure is 120 over 80. So this is within the range, safe range, I must say. Stroke volume. So stroke volume is the amount of blood which is pumped by heart in 1 minute. And we calculate this by dividing the total blood volume in the body, which is around 5.5 liters, by the beats, which are in average adult, it is 72 beats per minute, but it is very variable. So we can't rely on that. It is very variable in different individuals. It is lower in females, it is higher in males. So here we are given the stroke volume 100 ml, which means the heart of this person is pumping out 100 ml of blood per minute. Heart rate is 68 beats per minute. Pressure in the right atrium can be assumed to be negligible. So here we assume it negligible because there is a lot of pressure in the right, in the superior vena cava. So, and so the difference between the pressure is very less. It is very large. So that's why if we assume it to be negligible, our result won't be affected much. And here we have to express our results in Pascal meter cube second. And this is also very important because if you do the whole calculation right, but if the units are wrong, answer would be wrong. And this relation is important to know, that 1000 mLs make 1 liter and 1000 liter make 1 meter cube. So this is how you can find the relation between them. So there's the formula, it is very similar to the formula that you might have learned in high school for current, where resistance is voltage per current. Resistance equals to voltage per current. So here voltage is the pressure difference, current is the blood flow. And even if you remember, it is very analogous to that, because current is charge flowing per minute, and blood flow is blood flowing per minute, which is the stroke volume. Okay, so so it is not only stroke volume, we have to multiply that by the beats per minute, because 100 ml would be pushed by blood in 1 beat. So you need to multiply it by 68 to get the value of Q. is how you get the value of Q. And this is to get it in per second terms, because we want the final units to be Pascal meter cube second. So it is good to derive everything in terms of SI units, because here we are asked that. And even in general, if you do it, it would be better. So this how you find the pressure difference, which would be um, mean blood pressure in aorta minus mean blood pressure in pulmonary artery, which is the right atrium. Now, mean blood pressure is diastolic blood pressure plus systolic minus diastolic by 3. So here it is important because we have two values of pressure. So we need to arrive at some middle value. Now, we cannot simply take an average, because the difference between systolic and diastolic blood pressure also plays a main role. So here, this is how we calculate mean blood pressure. And as we assume the mean blood pressure in pulmonary artery to be 0, we get this answer, 93 millimeters of mercury. And from that, we can calculate the vascular resistance, which is 1.9 into 10 raised to minus 8 Pascal meter cube second. We're going on to the next question. Here we are told that the peripheral vascular resistance, which was in the previous question, PVR, increases with the level of cholesterol in the blood moved by 11%. So we have to calculate how much percent the average cross section of vascular system decreased, which means due to increased cholesterol, the diameter or the cross section decreased, and because of that, the vascular resistance has increased. So let's see. So now this is also derived from the previous formula, and you need to learn this formula so you can solve it fast. And in the finals, you won't be given this, so you need to learn them. And here we have delta P over delta P pi r raised to 4 divided by delta ln 8. So here we don't need a lot of parameters. We can find it out from the relation between them. So here we see resistance is inversely proportional to the fourth power of radius. This is because it is indirectly proportional to square of area. Here we can see that. And we can simply do it by the proportional method. And we get the new area. Now, this is also very important because here we get the new area in terms of the old area. So we have to replace it in terms of percentage, which would be 1 minus 0.94, because we are comparing it to the old area in terms of percentage. So it decreased by 5.08%. Look at it like this. Let's say you had 100 rupee, let's say $100, and you lost $6. So you know that now you have $94, but the $6 you lost would not be 94%, right? That would be 6% of what you had. So you lost 6% of the money you had. It's similar to that. So now we are nearing the heart work. So here we have the power of heart, power of right heart, because it includes right atrium and right ventricle. If cardiac output is 6 liters per minute, heart rate is 80 beats per minute, speed of the blood is 0.5 meters per second, systolic blood pressure is 28 Diastolic is 15. All values are of pulmonary artery. So we have to know that this is not of the systemic blood, because that is, as I told, 120 over 80 in normal terms. And result in watts. So watt is joule per second. So power is work per time, as I said, joule per second. Therefore, P is mean EP plus half PV square into cardiac output. And this is how you calculate the mean pressure, as we did earlier. Now, it is very important to not confuse between the two formulas, because the previous one we did was for, as we can see here, we did it for the resistance. So for resistance, we will use this formula, MBP. But for the work, we will use this formula, which is MEP. Now we put whatever we have. We have the mean EP plus, so we have the mean EP plus half of PV square into cardiac output, and we get the power in watts, because all the units were already in SI system, so we get the answer in SI system. This again very important. They give you the value. If they give you the values for pulmonary artery, work will be for the right heart, because right heart pumps blood into the lungs, which moves through pulmonary artery. If they give you values for aorta, the work will be for the left heart, because left heart pumps blood to the entire body through aorta. Work of right heart is 1/5 of the work of left heart. As we can see that left heart has to pump blood to the entire body. Obviously, it has to do more work compared to right heart. So they can do this, and if they give you values for pulmonary artery, they want the work of left heart, then first you find out the work for the right heart and then multiply it by 5, because you know this by we know this by experimental measures, that it is 1/5 of the work of left heart. And how do you remember this? You remember it like the right heart has to pump blood only to the lungs, whereas left heart has to pump it to the entire body. So if you are given the value of pulmonary artery, find the work for the right heart and multiply it by 5, because it is less, so you have to multiply. And if you have the values for the aorta, you find, and they want the values for right heart, then use aorta values to find work of left heart and then divide, because you know that left heart is doing more work, but you need to find the work of right heart. So you have to divide it, convert it into right heart. So here's one question related to that. Calculate work of left heart during 1 minute for these conditions. Cardiac output is 5.5 liters per minute. Heart rate is 100 beats per minute. Speed of blood in aorta is 0.5 meters per second. Systolic blood pressure in aorta is 143 millimeter mercury. Diastolic blood pressure is 79. Express your results in joules. So again, we are given the SI unit. So for work during 1 minute, we use the power equation times the unit in minutes. But before that, let's find out the pressure, which, as we discussed earlier, is mean EP plus half PV square in times cardiac output. Now, here, cardiac output, we have to convert it into meter cube per minute, because as we know, cardiac output is in terms of liters, but we have to convert it into meter cube. And MEP to pascals, because here we have in terms of mercury, millimeter Hg. So we do that. We convert mean EP into pascals and we convert cardiac output into meter cube per minute, which is dividing by 1000. As we said that 1000 liters make 1 meter cube. So 1 liter would be 1 by 1000 meter cube. We get this answer in for 1 minute. Okay, so here we have the ejection fraction, which is basically how much volume of blood was given out compared to how much was taken in. So it is increased from 40% to 80% after successful heart surgery. So by how many percent end systolic volume decreased by this intervention, consuming end diastolic volume to be constant. So here we have this formula which says ejection fraction is 1 minus the ratio of systolic and diastolic volume. From that we get 1 minus EF equals to systolic over diastolic volume, and then we cross multiply and get this equation which says EDV equals to ESV upon 1 minus EF. And according to the equation, we know that according to the question, we know that the EDV is constant, which means the ESV upon 1 minus EF should also be constant. So we put it ESV2 upon 1 minus 0.8 because we have to convert it from percentage to fraction. And here we get the systolic volume later, which is ESV2, to be 0.33 times, or we can say 1/3 of ESV1. Just a minute. Now we have to calculate the blood pressure in aneurysm. So aneurysm is opposite of stenosis. Aneurysm is the uh, increase in the diameter of artery, whereas stenosis is narrowing of the artery. So aneurysm of 17 millimeter, which arose from an artery of diameter 6 millimeter. So as we said, the diameter has significantly increased. We can say it is it's almost tripled, and original pressure was 93 and blood speed was 0.3 and volume flow is constant. So here we have this image according to the Bernoulli's equation, as we also saw earlier, which was static pressure plus dynamic pressure, which is P plus half PV square. In aneurysm, the radius increases, which means the velocity has to decrease because the volume is constant. And static pressure also increases because there's a lot of blood flowing from particular cross-sectional area. So here we have the diameter 6 millimeters, radius 3, pressure 93, which we convert into Pascal. Because here we are not asked anything, we have to find the answers in Pascal, or it will be given in the exam, in the final exam. But if it's not given, then you have to find it in Pascal because we have to follow the SI system. Anyways, here we find out the answer according to our previous Bernoulli's equation, which is P plus half PV square is constant, and we replace those values. And here we get the final answer in 93 in millimeter of mercury. So here we would have to convert unless we were told something else. So there's also to keep in mind, the change is in decimals. So the answer will remain unchanged. In terms of millimeter Hg, you can still find this much difference, which is of 0.4. But when you convert it into pascals, and if you're calculating it to a 3-digit significance, then in pascals, the answer would remain same. So this is what given in the photo was. Now we have ionizing radiation. So this is the part of radiology mostly, and also diagnostics of diagnostic methods, and it has to do something with activity, intensity, radiation. So the basic, we'll start with the basic, that a material is unstable, it undergoes decay to change to more stable. So in order to go through that process, it will release something. We didn't know what this something was until a point of time in the history back, and we realized it is matter which is being released. So it was violating the rules that we knew at that time. We knew that matter is always conserved in a reaction, but here we found that matter was converting into energy. And we also know this from the famous Einstein equation, which was equals to mc square. I digress, but that's what is the foundation of this part, which is ionizing radiation. So what is activity? Activity is a quantity that describes the frequency of radioactive decay, which means how much time the object or the material is emitting the radiation per unit time. It can be per second, per minute, and we take the unit according to our convenience. Then there is intensity, which is energy per unit area, intensity. And here is an important note. Since a change in activity will lead to the same change of intensity, it's okay to just use intensity for all the calculations because they are proportional. So you can use them interchangeably, but just keep in mind that they are not the same thing. They are different. Exponential decay. So both the activity and intensity go exponential decay, where the quantity gets halved after the same time, same amount of time or distance. So this the exponential. So if you know the exponential graph, you would know that it goes from, it follows a parabola or hyperbola depending on from where it is starting. If it is starting from the top, you would see a parabola, and from the bottom it would be hyperbola. So radioactive source, over time more and more of the radioactive substance has already undergone decay, and the frequency of decay activity also decreases with the time. So activity decreases with time. There's something called half-life which is related to this. Radiation. As the radiation passes through object, energy is lost to the substance as it is passing through, and intensity decreases with the distance. So we can say that the energy, for example, released by sun, just imagine how much it would be just near it, and how much it would be 10 meters away from the sun. So at 0 meters and 10 meters, we would think that if, let's say, the energy is 1000 joule at 0 meters, then it would be, let's say, 100 maybe. We like to think in linear terms, but it is not linear. It is exponential, which means it will get halved in square. So if it is 10,000 joules, it will become 100. From 100, it will become 1. sorry, I mean, it will become 10, and from 10, it will become the square root of 10, and then square root of 10, and so on. So this is the equation for the exponential graph, which is I equals I naught times e to the power of minus constant times quantity. Here, constant we can take, say, gamma, and uh, micron for distance. It is called mu. So this would be constant would be calculated separately for each substance because it is different for each substance. So this is the graph that I talked about. Then there are new terms which are, as I said, half-life and half-value layer. As we said that the constant is time and distance, and the relation will depend on that. So here we have half-life. So we like to think that at a particular moment of time, the activity would become exactly the half, if you can imagine this. For example, if a material is releasing, let's say, 100 times per second at time equals to 0, then there would be some time in the future where it will be emitting 50. So that is called the half-life of the material. And similarly, it's half-value layer, which is till how much meters of material the radiation has to pass to become of half intensity. And if we substitute in this equation, we find that the quantity will be 1 divided by 1 by 2, which will be 2. And we know that we would simply get a natural logarithm of 2 on the left hand side by doing it I naught by I. So here we cross multiply, it will become I naught by I, and the E term would go to the opposite side and become E raised to the positive power of constant times quantity. So here we get that. So here natural logarithm of 2, and this is a fixed value, which is 2.303 times 0.301, which is around 0.7. So you should also know that you can calculate it, but I would suggest you to know this because then the calculation would be faster. So it would be around 0.693. For if your answer is not going too much away from the main answer, you should check it. Then it's better to use 0.7 also, but um, keep it in mind. 0.6932. It's not a difficult number. 0.6932. So here we have one question. Ionizing radiation from radioisotope of half-life 1 day is passing through the shielding material of half-value 10 centimeter. Determine the intensity expressed in the percentage of original intensity of radiation behind 8 centimeter of shielding layer after 3 days. So here we have to find, first of all, the half-life. From the half-life, we have to find the value of the constants. If you remember, the constants gamma for time and mu or micron for distance. So we find that out and then we replace it in the new equation for the new values 8 centimeter and 3 days. So here we have it. Half value layer would be natural logarithm of 2 divided by mu. Half time or half life would be natural logarithm of 2 divided by gamma, and from those we get the value of mu and gamma, and we substitute in the equation, and we have to convert if necessary, but just keep in mind that you don't convert it if it's not asked. So here we calculated it. So here we substitute the value of time, which would be the quantity that we discussed. It can be time or the distance of the layer. So here we calculated for the time, which was 3 days, and we get it 0.125 of the initial intensity. So we have to convert it into percentage as it was asked in the question. So we find the distance in the similar way by substituting the value of micron or mu, and then we calculate the percentage. And if you see, we have substituted the intensity value in the step 5 with the answer that we got in step 4. Now there is something called effective half-life. So when a radioactive drug is administered to the person, the decay is like we would expect as physical half-life, but it is also excreted from the body at a different rate. So it has a biological half-life. So now the level of the drug in the body is decreasing by 2 different mechanisms. And as we would think of it, it is in parallel. So although we add it in series, we don't simply add it, we divide the values and then add it. So they work together and they have effective half-life. So if we have effective half-life, then we will have the biological value of the gamma constant, we will have physical value of gamma constant, which is based on physical phenomenon. And so we will have the effective half-life, biological half-life, and physical half-life, which is the normal half-life that we are calculating till now. So here we have a question. Biological half-life is 17 hours. Decay constant is 9.6 to the power 10 to 10 to the power minus 4 per second. Second to the power of minus 1 can also be called per second. So don't get confused by that. And determine the effective half-life in terms of second. So here from the decay constant, we have to remember that, okay, effective half-life. So for the effective half-life, there is only one formula, which is related to the value of constants, which was effective constant equals to biological plus physical. Now here we have the biological half-life, so it would be easy to calculate gamma biological, and here we have the decay constant, which is in terms of physical. So here we got T half in seconds. We had to convert it into seconds because it should be in seconds, because nothing is mentioned. And also the other decay constant, it's given in second to the power minus 1. So here we got the formula. You can look at it. We got the biological constant, and then we already had the physical constant, and then we added those two. We got the final answer. Now, even this is not the final step because we were asked the effective half-life. So we still need to divide the answer, or we can say divide it from the natural logarithm of 2, and we get 714 seconds. So this is effective half-life, meaning this is the practical value which you would find, because there is a body involved, there is an organism involved in the process. It's not just happening in nature. If it was in nature, we would happily accept the value of 9.6 into 10 to the power minus 4 seconds. But because body is also involved, the organism, to say, we have effective half. So here we have another question. 62% of the original amount of radionuclide disintegrated after 9 days. So we have to calculate the half-life. So here what route would we take? We would calculate first the constant, and from the constant we can calculate the value of half-life. So we write the equation. 9 days is 777,600 seconds. We calculate the percentage according to the question, and it is of the remaining nucleotide. So 62% has already disintegrated. Keep in mind this, that I is the value of intensity at a particular given time, and it is not how much has decayed, because even during my initial days when I was doing these sums, I would get very confused because of the concept of half-life. Because half-life, if you subtract 0.5 from 1, it would still be 0.5. So I would get confused. But you have to always remember that the intensity is always at the particular given time. For example, if at 10 o'clock you measured the intensity to be 10, and if at 11 o'clock you found it to be 5, or I took the wrong number. Uh, if I found it, if I found it to be 6, so what would you take, 6 or 4? 4 has disintegrated, and the value at 11 o'clock is 6. So you would take 6, not 4. So that is very important to keep in mind. So that's why we had to subtract this, because in question we were not given the value at a particular moment of time, but we were given the value which has decayed or disintegrated. So we had to find it by subtracting. Here we get the value of the constant. From that, calculate the half-life. And here also we solve it by doing natural logarithm on both the sides. This you must know from the knowledge of basic mathematics of logarithm and exponents. Okay, so now there is a radioisotope applied into organism. Its activity 10 hours after application was 1 megabecquerel. Mega, you can think about it. Becquerel is a very small unit. So we usually use the larger versions, which is mega, giga. Giga is still very large. Generally, the values are in mega. And after next 6 hours, its activity decreased to 149 kilobecquerel. So you can see the change is much more. If you know it from the knowledge of mathematics, mega is 10 to the power 6, kilo is 10 to the power of 3. So we can see that it decreased in half, because 149 kilobecquerel would be around 0.149 megabecquerel. So it didn't become 1000th, but it became around sort of 1/5. What was the radioactive the activity of the radioisotope 1 day after the application? And results should be becquerel. And how would you define becquerel? Becquerel is the radioactive decay per second. Per second. Remember this. Rewrite the equation, convert units from mega and kilo. So you have to keep that in mind, as I said. And we calculate the constants. So here we have the value of intensity. As I said, mega will means million, followed 1 followed by 6 zeros, and kilo is 1 followed by 3 zeros. Here we have 149, so it would be 149,000. And we rearrange the first equation to this: I naught equals to 1 million by e to the power minus gamma 10, and then substitute this I naught into second equation, so that we can take the gamma on both the sides. Also calculate I naught using the value that we find. We recycle this value of gamma in the initial equation or the rearrangement that we did, and we can find the value of I naught. So we'll see how to do this calculation. And from that, we find the activity after 24 hours. So we first found the activity, which was the initial activity, and then we found it after 24 hours. So try to understand how we are doing it, because me telling you different questions won't make you think much. So you have to do it by yourself. So try to do as many questions as you can do. So your brain will automatically understand the structure that we are going through. So we are so here we can see that we are going through a proper structure, that we are given one time, which was 10 hours and 6 hours. So from comparison of those two, we found out the value of constant, which was gamma. From the value of gamma, we found out the initial, And from that initial, now the examiner can give you any time. The examiner can give you 40 hours, he or she can give you 5 hours, 10 hours, 11, 12, 13, 14, anything. You just have to know where to use that. And here where we use 24, you can use 5, you can use 3, and then you find out the answer of the activity. So this is how we did the step for calculating gamma. So here we have the value of I naught, which is 149,000 divided by this value of exponent. And then we equated those two, as I said, so that we can eliminate gamma on one side of the equation. And we did so, and then we took the natural logarithm in the last step, which was 6 gamma is natural logarithm of 6.711, and then we divided it by 6, the answer by 6, and found out the value of gamma.